What's up, guys? This is the KP Show back after quite the off season and a little break here. I'm back to preview the NFL draft, and I want to speak on the most important position in the NFL, wide receivers. And to do that, I got a guest with me today, Matt Harmon. Matt does some good work on wide receivers. Matt, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Really appreciate you having me on. I love the receiver position too, so I'm excited to bat some ideas around with you.
Yep, and what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the NFL draft, but we're going to talk about the receiver position specifically and not just talk about prospects. We're going to talk about what it is that we're looking for in a receiver, what traits translate, and just kind of go from there. So first off, what Matt does is Matt actually does a study on all of these receivers, and he does it for the NFL, and he's just now diving into it with these college prospects. And I'll let Matt kind of introduce that and kind of tell us what that is.
Sure. So the project is called Reception Perception, and it's been kind of an evolving process since I started doing it last off season. Around June and July was when I put out the first two examples of a season, like a season scope is what I call it, because it's only 8 games that are sampled out of a full season. Just because I'm one man, like if I tried to chart every snap, it just would never work out. And I feel like 8 games is a more than good enough sample to understand what a receiver does well. But anyway, so I put out a study on Patterson from his rookie season and Jordy Nelson, just as kind of a preliminary thing. And then since then, I've taken it over to Football Guys, where I now do the college prospects, but during the season, I kind of put like a fantasy football spin on it. And really, that's kind of where the process became. I really got a good grasp of what I was doing and all the things that I'm taking into account. And it pretty much, reception perception covers everything. There's a drop rate, a contested catch success rate, the success rate versus coverage scores, which pretty much go into anything you'd want, how they do versus man, zone, press, double coverage, and then, on a per route basis, how many times they ran each route and how often they got open on that route, and then how much production they had on a per route basis. So, I mean, I like to think that it really gives a lot of context to a receiver's game and really tells the whole story of the type of player they are and just exactly what they're doing on the field.
That's awesome, man. No, that's really in depth, and it definitely does. It sounds like it separates, guys, because some guys are obviously better against zone coverage where they don't have to separate. They can just kind of sit in a soft spot of a zone, and against man coverage, you might have to have a better burst to separate, or you might have to be better in contested catches situations. So, I mean, that's really good. So, what kind of made you want to start this?
Well, for one, it's always good, I think, when you're, this is just from like I don't know if you want to say a career standpoint, quote unquote, but it's always good to, I think, have something that's your own when you're trying to talk about football, because there's so much noise about the game that it really helps to go have kind of a specialty or whatever. And I always loved wide receivers. I mean, Randy Moss was my favorite player growing up. Steve Smith was my favorite Panthers player ever. So I mean, I've just always been inclined to that position, and the way the cornerback and wide receiver battle is such an interesting and in-depth sort of part of the game that's also very exciting too. So I've always been inclined to that position, and also just setting up a study is where I have a very pretty heavy academic background, and so it kind of all made sense to me to do it this way. And it just helps me understand things, so I like to think that it will help other people understand things.
No, I mean, I've looked at it. It definitely does. You break it down to where you almost have no choice to say, oh wow, this guy does this against this, and this guy, his contested catches. Or do you factor in red zone as well?
I don't necessarily. You can tell just on routes, like on the per route chart or route success rate chart, I have a PTS indication, which lets you know how many. Again, since I did this for a fantasy site this season, and I'll continue to, it's like how many PPR fantasy points they score on a certain route, and that kind of shows you where they're scoring touchdowns, like for Amari Cooper recently, I did like his 9 routes had like over 40 points on a 5-game sample, and that was, obviously he was scoring touchdowns on those long go routes, so that's kind of shows you that. But no, I don't really have anything with red zone yet, or anything on like what sector of the field. So no, that's one area that maybe something could be added in the future.
So I guess coming up with your own thing is good, and I try to do something like that as well with corners and receivers. What do you think the biggest thing that you personally learned from it, or like what was your biggest takeaway from doing this, from charting this stuff compared to just the eyeball test?
I would say just charting in general helps you really put down kind of your money where your mouth is, I guess, because it gives you like a hard figure to look at, and it helps you understand exactly what you're seeing. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but I've always had the feeling that everything in life is kind of subjective, and I think everything within football analysis is very subjective. People want to put objective terms to it, but I think it's all kind of relative to what you want in a player and everything. So I like to say that reception perception gives you like a quantifiable number to something that's kind of inherently qualitative. You know what I'm saying? So that is kind of what it helps me do, is it gives me like a better indication of exactly what they do well and how often they did it well. Because I don't just throw out the success rates, I also say like how many attempts they had versus man coverage. So context it offers context, and it offers kind of a hard figure to something that when you're just doing the eyeball test is important to note, but it just makes it easier to understand.
No, I think you had a good point about subjective and objective with stats. There's so many different advanced stats nowadays, and even drop rate is, that's subjective too, because what I think is a drop, you might not think is a drop, or what I think is a contested catch, you might say no, he had to wait, a couple extra steps. So everything that we do is subjective, but I think charting is the way to go too, because I think it's just it gives you something to fall back on. Like you said, when somebody calls you out, like let's say for example Jalen Strong, somebody would say he's a body catcher, he catches everything with his body. I can go back to what I have jotted down and tell you he had 30 catches, and only because that's something I write down, if he uses his hands or if he uses his body. So I can tell you that he only had 2 catches that he caught with his body. So, I mean, I really do like the whole charting thing, and I mean, I would advise anybody else to do it. I mean, I have bad memory. That's one of the reasons I started to do it. But no, I really like that. I mean, just going in depth, it really allows you to understand the game better, I think so.
Totally. Anytime you can simplify something, for your readers or your viewers is helpful. And I think visual. I mean, hell, we're probably all pretty visual learners at this point in our generation. So I think giving a chart helps.
Yeah, definitely. So, kind of segueing from that, what did that help you look for in a receiver? So you're charting these things, and you're noticing, okay, this is what it takes for a good receiver. So as you're watching receivers in the draft, what are you looking for? Like, what's some successful traits that you see that NFL receivers, that NFL receivers are really good at?
Well, I think it's kind of changed what I value in receivers. Personally, like last year, watching guys, preparing for the draft, I was really putting kind of a heavy emphasis on the whole contested catch thing. And I think that's very in vogue right now, because I think a lot of the dialogue about the league is that we have all these great man coverage corners, these big guys like, Sherman and Revis and all that sort of stuff. So people say like, oh, well, you have to make contested catches, but I think it made me value separation, like guys who can just inherently create that even just split second of separation in their routes, especially at key moments in the routes. It made me value that a lot more and look for guys that do that more frequently than necessarily the contested catches. And I think that translates to the NFL from the quarterback position, because I think there are a lot of guys in the league that are kind of see it, throw it sort of guys. I think we're lacking really on anticipatory passers So, perfect example is a guy like Colin Kaepernick. Like he's going to look at that one read and he's going to hit that. Even Cam Newton, who I'm a big fan of Cam Newton, but he has a little bit of that as well. So I think that is why going forward teams are going to put more of an emphasis on these guys that create the separation, because the quarterbacks are going to be more interested in just the way they're coming out of college now and the spread systems and creating windows. It's going to be more important to have those guys who create the separation and give their quarterback more space to throw to than these guys who can make outrageous contested catches.
Yep, no, I agree. I think if I had to nail it down to three different traits, I would say winning at the line of scrimmage, so beating press coverage, so you can get that early separation. Winning at the top of your route, so just being quick or footwork or whatever it is that you do to get separation at the top of your route. And then if you can't do those things to get separation, that's where the contested catches trait comes in. So it's definitely important to get that separation, and you don't have there's receivers that we see in college and in the NFL where they can get this separation so they don't have to make these contested catches. I think Amari Cooper's a good example of that because he's so quick at the top, and if you press him, he can beat you. So there's definitely different traits, but I think those are probably the best, the three that I would go to. So that was a good point as well on the whole, these lockdown corners. For every Richard Sherman, there's probably 10 number 3 corners that are guarding number 1. So, you want these guys that can separate. That's a good point. So, just going back to these traits, do you think it's more important? Let's see here. Would you rather a guy catch, let's just throw out an example. Would you rather have a guy catch the ball away from his body consistently and have a couple drops, or the opposite, where he's always catching with his body, even in traffic, but he's going to hang on to it? Because I guess I'd say that because the body catch will lead to more contested situations and might lead to more pass breakups. So what would you say?
I would say I'd rather see a guy extend for it more, especially this is a good example. I think Nelson Aguilar, who's a player I really like, and I've have liked more of the more that I've watched him. But he extends a lot when he doesn't need to, even on just quick curl routes or comeback routes. I see him extend a lot when he could just easily let the ball into his body. But I kind of like that because I think part of what I look for in a receiver, and I would love to hear what you think on this as well. I really like to see a guy who is the aggressor, both in his routes and at the catch point. So what I prefer to see a guy stretch out for it, make that reach as opposed to let him get the ball into his body. That's just a preference, and I think it's different on a case by case basis. But yeah, in general, I prefer that a little more.
Yeah, I think I'm just looking at some of Nelson Aguilar stuff right here. Looks like he has over 30, I think about 33 catches in 4 games, and only 4 body catches. And his contested catches is pretty good too, it looks like. So that was a good example. I like Nelson Aguilar a lot too. I would say I like the aggressor too. I think you want that my ball mentality. You don't want to brace it in because it seems like just watching some of these guys, the guys that trust their hands are the guys that are going to go up for jump balls too. They're going to be able to win those contested catches. I think, I'm trying to think of a good example of this. I know smaller receivers like Tyler Lockett is a good example of a guy who has shown that he can go up and get it, and he can be the aggressor. I don't know. I think I would go that route as well.
Yeah, definitely. But it's kind of a double-edged sword too, because you get the guys who want to extend, but they can't time it well. Because if a receiver sticks his hands up in traffic, or sticks his hand out, to get a pass away from his body, if they don't time it right, if they do it too early, well, it's obviously a problem if they do it too late because the ball's going to be gone. That's obvious. But if they throw them out too early in the route or too early before the ball arrives, then there's a good chance it's going to tip off the corner. That's going to lead to more contested situations. I think Devontae Parker is one guy who kind of does that, whereas I think Kevin White, on the other hand, is a guy whose timing is like near perfect. But that's just my opinion.
No, there's that was right when you said tipping off his routes. Devontae Parker came to mind.
Yeah.
This one route specifically, there's a slant that sticks out, and what he did, he like kind of turns his head and starts to like peek in the backfield.
Yeah.
And that's when it's probably the biggest flaw. I'm like a huge Devontae Parker fan, and we can get into that, but that's probably the one flaw he's gonna have to work on. That's funny that you noticed that too. That's another thing with these receivers and anything in the NFL, like in the draft period. We can all watch the same thing. We can all see the same thing, but at the same time, we can all watch the same guy want to run a route and come away with like different conclusions. And that's why I think this is all good, just good conversation. Not even, and I think arguments or quote unquote arguments are good and they're healthy because you can kind of open up your mind and see what other guys are thinking as well.
Oh yeah, well it's fun. That's why receivers are so fun too, because you can see everybody sees something different within the route. Every route is its own individual story, and we can get so much from it. It is totally a blast to go back and forth about the position.
So speaking of traits, what traits don't you think translate? So we're seeing, obviously, we can look at college production, and that's easy to say. Like, this guy had 150 yards on 6 catches, but you want to see how. So what traits, I guess, would you say when you're charting or when you're just watching college receivers, don't you think translate?
That's a really good question. I think sometimes run after the catch ability doesn't translate on a consistent basis. And Cooper's a good example of this. I have a tackle breaking kind of percentage where I break it down, how many open field attempts they have, and then how many times they broke one tackle, 2 or more tackles, and then like first contact drop or whatever. So Cooper is one who charts out pretty well in that regard. But sometimes when I'm watching him, I'm kind of questioning whether he's all that dynamic in the open field. Just how often does he have great spatial awareness? Like, I think he's really good at it, and he's great at it in college. I mean, you see him, totally toast guys in the open field. But then sometimes that's one trait that I'm not always sure translates so well to the pro level. So that's probably the one I'd go with right off the bat.
No, that's a good one. I mean, it is tough because you also have to factor in who he's going against in the open field too, or how these guys are coming downhill, because we see there's so many bad secondary play.
Yeah.
We see just safeties launching themselves, and I know that the secondary play in the NFL isn't like great either, but you can, and that kind of leads me into my point. I would say it's really hard to get a gauge on 50-50 balls or just these deep downfield targets. And a guy that comes to mind is a guy that I just watched, Sammy Coates. So we're seeing like Sammy Coates come up with these contested catches. I want to say like on passes over like 30 or 40 yards, he's like 50%. Like I have him in like 4 games, but some of these passes, he's not even like leaving his feet. Like all he has to do is like stick his arms in the air, and because like the corner mistimed his jump, or because the corner overran it, or just something, whatever, or the ball even like fell in his lap on one of these. So it's really fluky, like to look at something and say, that's going to translate. And I don't know. I know Sammy Coates has all the speed in the world, but I'm not so sure he plays that fast. And I guess we can get into that too. But that's what I would go with.
Yeah, I'm over here nodding my head at what you're saying about Coates, because I can think of like specific plays. I know there's one like big 50-50 ball he won versus LSU, where he doesn't like barely leave his feet at all. He just sticks his hand up and he gets it, and the corner, you're looking at the corner and like, what are you doing? Like you're in such bad position. And I think people see that and they're like, oh well, that's him translating that deep game, like you said. But you're right. it does come down to corner plays. And to circle back to Cooper there, that's one that Sigmund Bloom, who's my good friend and my boss at Football Guys, so I think he's smart, but that's but anyways, yeah. So he was one of the first to point out to me over the phone one day just that how it really bothered him how scared corners were of playing Cooper, and that kind of harks back to both of our points about playing the ball in the air and also as a run after the catch threat, because these guys are just playing so far off him because they're just terrified of what he's going to do to them, that he has so much space to set these guys up with when he makes the catch, and then turn around and make them miss in the open field or whatever. So you're right. That is something that's really important to pay attention to when scouting prospects.
Just looking at Coates' numbers real quick on 50-50 balls, basically over 15 yards, because one of these is a dig, so I'll say over 15 yards, but the majority of them are over 30 yards, so these are bombs and posts down the field. He was 10 for 16 on contested catches down the field. That just doesn't happen in the NFL. That's just not, I don't know. But let's talk a little bit about the combine, because that's next week, and a lot of people dismiss it. A lot of people say, "Oh, that's not important. This drill doesn't matter. Who runs a 40? who was ever going to run a 40 in real life that far?" So, how important is the combine to you?
It's important. I don't want to say I don't know what percentage or whatever it factors into my evaluation. I don't really think that's important to know as much as some would think, but I think, of course, it's a case-by-case basis, and I'll say that a lot for a lot of different things about receivers. But it's fun. For one, I love the combine just because it's such a big spectacle, and I love seeing the numbers. And even if it doesn't matter all that much, like you said, 40-yard dash times, but it still gives you a threshold of just how athletic they are. There's a player I scouted all year from the Mountain West Conference for Optimum Scouting, Devonte Davis from UNLV. He's huge. He's rocked out 6'3", 222. I think he measured in the Senior Bowl, and I mean, he's a guy that I've really loved watching, even from just when I got the assignment of the Mountain West. Just immediately, he was one of the players that stuck out to me, and obviously, I like wide receivers and everything, so that was gravitated to him right away. He's been kind of one of my guys. I'm really interested to see how he runs, just because there are sometimes he looks really quick in and out of his breaks and creates that separation, but then there's other times after the catch he looks kind of slow and lumbering. So I want to see what kind of athletic threshold I have to match with that size. So I definitely think it matters. It's not obviously you always go back to the tape, and that's what matters the most. But the combine factors in somewhere, and I don't think it's something you can just take and just throw away.
I really like the Gauntlet Drill.
Yeah.
You want to see. I remember last year in the combine, just looking at Odell Beckham do the Gauntlet Drill, run full speed down the line, just plucking balls away from his body, catch, drop, or catch, let it go, no problem whatsoever. And then you see a guy, how he's weaving up and down, fighting the ball. But then, I mean, I think that kind of translates. You want to see guys that are just naturally good with their hands and that are comfortable finding and locating the ball, because you're going to have to locate passes quickly. So that's important. I think they turn and run and locate the ball over their shoulders is pretty important too. Just natural football things like that. But I like the 40 a lot. I like guessing, just watching a guy live and see, oh, he's going to be a 4-5 guy. He's going to be a 4-4 guy. I think that's pretty fun to do. So I like the combine too. It is special. I like to see the reactions. I like to see people. Yes. I like to see people blow it off like it's nothing or overreact to. Who do you think is going to be the biggest combine quote winners this year?
I mean, obviously Coates. We just talked about him. He's probably going to kill that thing. From just I'm sure he'll run a crazy 40. I'm sure some of his 3-cone stuff, his short shuttle, all that's going to be outrageous. But like you said, the gauntlet is going to be interesting to see how he goes through that. While you might think he's the guy who looks good in shorts and tights or whatever. I think like you said, it's important to watch that because not only are you getting to see them make all these catches away from their body and locate passes, you're also getting to see how they perform with a quarterback that they're super unfamiliar with. I think that's important, and just kind of what do they fall back on in a really big spot. Just watching the combine, watching it over again, and seeing what habits they display is important. But yeah, so Coates, I think he's one. Dorsett, that receiver from Miami, who I haven't gotten a chance to watch yet. I'm sure he's probably the odds-on favorite from what I've heard to be the fastest guy in Indy. So that's one. And then I'm interested to see what Parker does because I know he's billed as like a super athletic guy. He's one that I think he could have a big performance, but I'm not like so sold on it as I am with a guy like Coates.
So let's just go down this list. I'm looking at a list of receivers. Let's just go down and let's just fire off 40 times right now because that's really, really important. So, so Amari Cooper, what's his 40?
High 4.4s.
Nice. I'll say, yep, I was going to say 4.49, so that's about right. Devonte Parker.
Low 4.4s.
Oh, you think he can fly like that?
I think he's fast. I mean, I think he's fast. Probably more in a straight line. I would say so.
Yeah, and that's gonna like crush my dreams because I really want the Chargers to draft him. But I think he's gonna go 4.47. Kevin White, West Virginia.
4.5s, like maybe mid 4.5.
Yeah, I would say 4.55. That's about right. How much Devin Funchess have you watched?
Oh God! Oh, Funchess. Like I've watched enough to be frustrated. Like I don't know. I was just tweeting about this before we got on here. I have no idea what the hell to do with him. Like I don't have him in my wide receiver ranks at the moment.
Were you firing off takes?
Yeah, I was throwing a little bit out there, even though Hank Jones told me I shouldn't be talking about receivers anymore. But I'm still trying. But yeah, Funchess. Oh, I don't know. I could see him doing some freak thing like for his size, running in the 4.5s or I don't even know. He's one that I'm really interested to see. I have no idea. Just kind of like I do with this tape, I have no idea what we're gonna get from Funchess in Indy.
Yeah, I would guess. I mean, I know he's really long-legged, so he might stride well, but I don't see how he's going to run under 4.6.
Really?
Yeah, I really don't.
Well, he's a quickness guy. More like that's what's impressive about him. Like from a physical standpoint, is just how quick he is for his size. But you're right. I'm not convinced he's like a real long speed player.
So we talked about one of the favorites, Devin Smith.
Oh, I like Devin Smith, and I expect him to run. He'll run probably. What do you think? 4.3s? You think he'll run 4.3s?
I think he's going to go like 4.32. I think he's going to burn it up, man.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about Smith, but we should definitely talk about him a little bit later.
Yeah, he's a track guy, and I don't know how much track you watch, but he's like he places in like the 100-meter dash in the Big Ten, so he's gonna run. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't watch track from that standpoint, but I used to date a girl who was on the cross country track team, so I'm familiar with it from that perspective.
Nice. Jalen Strong.
I don't see him running anything special. Like I wouldn't be surprised at high 4.5s, low 4.6s.
Yeah, I'll go 4.58.
Yeah,
it'll be high. Yeah. Here's a polarizing guy, Dorial Green-Beckham.
Oh my gosh, I expect him to kill it as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a freak. He's a freak show out there. So I mean, yeah, 4.4s.
He has some crazy acceleration, man.
Oh yeah.
I think he has like probably 4.46, I would say.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So Miami, Phillip Dorsett.
Yeah, that's got to be. He could probably break 4.2s from what people are saying.
Yeah, he's another track guy, and you can tell just by his stride, man. I think he's gonna go 4.3 flat, maybe 4.29.
Yep.
Aguilar, Nelson Aguilar.
I mean, I would safely say 4.4s. Like he's another who's not super fast, but he's crazy quick in and out of breaks and everything. I would say 4.4s, and like that's not gonna blow people away for his size, but I'm fine with it.
I think he's gonna go. What's the Devonte Adams? Oh, Devonte Adams. I think he's gonna go. I don't think he's gonna break 4.4s. I think he's gonna be in the mid 4.5 range.
Yeah, I can see that.
4.55, 4.56. Sammy Coates.
Oh, Coates will be 4.3s.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be low 4.3s, and he's gonna look like one of those Tarzan guys out there, and he's probably gonna be a top performer in a lot of these events.
Absolutely.
Let's get a couple other slot guys in here. Not slot guys, but just some mid tier guys. What do you think Tyler Lockett's gonna run?
I don't know. Maybe like 4.4s. That's a tough one for me. I can't pinpoint that. It won't be anything special.
Yeah, I think he's probably quicker than fast. I think he's more about positioning and good route running than actual like real blaze speed. I think he's going to be probably 4.49, 4.5 flat.
Yeah.
Are you a Justin Hardy fan?
Yeah, I like Hardy a lot, but I don't expect him to run a sick 40 or anything.
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, it's not going to be as gross as Jarvis Landry's 40 or anything like that, even though they're kind of like similar prospects in my mind. But I think Hardy's more athletic. I could see him in the 4.5s, but I wouldn't be totally blown away if it was like 4.6 or something like that.
No, yeah, I'll give him high 4.5s, mid 4.5s. I think that's good for him. I don't think there's any other receiver that we really need to talk about. Is there any other guy that I missed, maybe?
Not that I would have a good gauge on what they would run.
So we talked about. So let's just get into just some traits and talk about how let's just compare the top 2 or 3 for each wide receiver. So let's talk about release off the line of scrimmage. Who do you like from what you've seen so far? Who gets off the line of scrimmage the best? Like, give me 2 to 3 guys.
From this draft, I think Parker does a pretty decent job of it. I think he's good at getting a good release. He has really good feet at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have his footwork is not as good mid route, but off the line, I think he's pretty good. Cooper is really good getting off press coverage. I think I had him only for because there's so little bump and run coverage in the NFL or in college football. I think I only had him like 15 press attempts for his reception perception study, but I mean he still had like an 86.7% success rate, which is good, and I think he's really knows when to go inside, when to go outside. His reaction time as well, reading the cornerback and what they're going to do. And he's aggressive with his hands, batting guys away, knocking their hands off his body, giving that shoulder kind of a push or something like that within 5 yards. He's both of those 2 guys, and I mean they're 2 of the best prospects, so that's not surprising. Aguilar has some good release ability at the line. You don't get to see it a ton playing in the Pac-12 or anything, but he's a strong player at the line of scrimmage as well.
I think you sold Parker short at the line of scrimmage. You actually hit on everything that I was going to say, but I would take it up to a notch where he's in a tier releasing from the line of scrimmage because of his footwork that some like the best NFL receivers don't do. I think he's really that good at the line of scrimmage. Like it's almost like a crossover in basketball where he makes guys fall, and I've seen him make guys fall because he's so quick and because he just understands how to release. So I think he is number 1 for sure. I would say a little bit of a gap between him and Amari Cooper, just because I've seen it more with Parker, like more attempts, so it's easy for me to clarify that or quantify it. I do think Amari's next. I think he's really good. That West Virginia replay is stuck in my head where he has a guy bouncing back and forth. I don't know. I guess I think Tyler Lockett's really good at the line of scrimmage,
That's a good
just from
call.
what I remember. But those would probably be three. So line of scrimmage, Parker, gap, Cooper, gap, Lockett. How about getting separation at the top of your route? So you mentioned this with Parker, and I'm glad you said that too because well, it doesn't even make sense. Like, how can you be good at the line with like really good footwork, but not have the same technique to create separation? I'm not sure what the difference is, or what he's doing different. But I don't know. Maybe it's something you noticed, but it's. I guess I haven't looked for it, but it's definitely something I noticed too. But go ahead and tell me who you would take.
Yeah, that is a good point on Parker. I think White's really underrated at this. He's another guy where everybody wants to loft up his contested catch ability, and obviously that's pretty good. But I think he really does win with quickness at the top of his routes, at break points especially. And it's really impressive. I know everybody cites his age as a problem, but just how much progression he's made from a junior college player to being like one of the best like 2 or 3 receivers this year in college football. I mean, that's incredibly impressive, and just some of the ability he shows as a route runner. I highlighted it in a Sporting News piece during the season, like back in October or something. Just even how good he was at it then, and I think he just got better as the season went on. Cooper is obviously that's kind of where he wins. Is separation in routes. Aguilar's another one who's again, I keep coming back to him, but he's kind of the one who's been most impressing me lately. He's very good at it. And Josh Harper out of Fresno State, like he's not talked about in this, but he's damn good at that. I mean, like he really understands when to break, how to put the corner in the position where he can take advantage of him. He's really very, very good at that.
No, I mean we haven't talked about some guys that I'm sure just names that I've seen like Brashad Perriman, Josh Davis, or the Fresno kid that you're talking about. Who else? I know that people are high on.
We haven't talked about Rashad Green at all.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's just Stephon Diggs. There's people that like Tony Lippett, Jamison Crowder from Duke. I mean, there's some interesting names in this draft. People always bring up that this is a weak draft class, but I think just because there's not a lot of first round talents in the draft that people automatically assume that the draft class is trash. But you can definitely find some role players, and I mean obviously we've seen Patriots and Seahawks. Every team needs role players, so you can fill your team with these in this draft, and the wide receiver position is a pretty good example of that. I think to answer the question, at the top of the route, I would say Amari Cooper is the best. He's just so. I remember my offensive coordinator in college telling me this, and it's exactly what Amari Cooper does. Like he takes, so let's say it's a 5-step or it's a 5-step in route. On his 5th step, it'll be like one cut. It won't be like chopping his feet and then go. It'll just be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cut. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then cut, and then go. And corners just can't keep up with him with that. I really like that about him. I think that Justin Hardy's really good on timing routes. So from the slot, the timing out route, he has that down. Aguilar's another good one for these timing routes. You see them create really good separation. So I think those would probably be the 3 that at least have stuck out in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. Those are all good names, and you came back to that timing point. I think there's a lot of guys that are going to fit in like a timing-based NFL offense more so than kind of the toss it up sort of backyard style that some guys play.
Yeah. So let's talk about contested catches. So if you need 3 guys to give you contested catch, who are you getting?
White is definitely one of them. I want to say Strong, but I don't want to say Strong too. Like I like Jalen Strong, but I think and he's kind of some people are all over the map on him. Like I know I work for Optimum Scouting, and I know Eric Galco has him as our like #1 receiver, which I totally don't agree with. But I'm not gonna get in his face about it. But yeah, so we disagree on Strong a little bit there. I think there are just a few things that make me question whether he's going to do that at the pro level. But he's obviously really good at contested situations. And I mentioned Devonte Davis before, and that dude, if I had to throw a ball up to him, like there are a lot of other holes in his game, but like if I got to throw a ball up to somebody in this class, it's going to be him. You know, maybe 8 times out of 10, because he's just so good at it. Like his body control, his leaping ability, and just how when he extends and how he extends his arms is crazy. I mean, there was one game against Nevada this year where he went the whole game without a catch except just one 3-yard touchdown in the red zone, and just like he just worked over the cornerback. And I mean, like the guy had perfect coverage on him, was totally, you know, it was probably a lot of DPI anyways. But Davis just comes down with it. So I know that's kind of, like I said, that's kind of my guy, but he's just so good at that. It's kind of hard coming up with guys who are great in contested situations, even though I think Aguilar's another, I can bring him up, but I mean, he's another small guy who's good at it. But there are mostly like smaller, quicker guys in this receiver class, not a lot of big guys. I think they're going to be at a premium.
No, that's a good point on contested catches too, because just like looking over some of these guys that I have, there's nobody that's really, you know, like above average. Like there aren't a lot of guys that would be like above 50%. Aguilar is a guy that's above 50%. Cooper is a guy that's above 50%. But like Jalen Strong's like 10 for 22. So like it's not above 50, but I mean he has enough opportunities to show that he can do it, and he's a guy that I don't know. I know people are super divisive on him, but he can attack the ball, and I know that I've seen plenty of vines in the last week of him not attacking the ball, but I've also seen him on intermediate routes shielding the DB off and making the play. So I would probably say, I don't know, I haven't said Kevin White for any of these, which is weird because I think he is comfortably the #3 receiver, but I feel like I think he was 7 for 15, so that's pretty good. I mean, that's really good.
Yeah.
So maybe it is him, but I think Aguilar has the best, and then him and Cooper would be probably the top 2, and then I guess Kevin White, so I haven't said him.
Yeah, that's obviously kind of White's game.
It has to be.
Yeah, it really does. And yeah, as far as Strong goes, just to kind of talk on him a little bit, I'm a little frustrated with the dialogue about him just the last 2 weeks, and you know how things are on Twitter, like everything is frustrating, and it's always, you know,
it's so true.
Nothing can ever be like easy or simple. It always has to be frustrating. But like, I really like Jalen Strong. I think he's like an early second-round prospect. But like I said, some of the hype train, I mean, you know, like Draft Breakdown put 3 videos up, and then like all of a sudden everybody's talking about him and like all these impressive things. I just think he's a little overhyped from that sense, but and I question some of his translation, but obviously he's very talented and he's good. And also, I'm over Alshon Jeffrey comps like in general. Like those can all just go away. Like not every receiver who wins at the catch point is Alshon Jeffrey, and like then you get guys who cite, oh well, Jeffrey wasn't that good at it either in college. I'm like, that's just enough. No.
Yeah, I mean, we can honestly just do away with comps altogether. Like,
oh my God, yes.
Every transcendent running back doesn't have to be the next Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
Every catch point receiver doesn't have to be Alshon Jeffrey. Not everybody is going to be the next Odell Beckham in the rookie class. I mean, there's just so many. Just you don't have. And then I think what happens is you find yourself forcing to make a comp, and then you reach, and then you make yourself look even more foolish. So we can just do away with all that, man. But
totally. I really like how Matt Waldman does comps. I mean, not everything Matt Waldman does is great, but the way he does his comps is really well, and I like how Josh Norris does it, where he's, you know, and I try to do this too. You put like shades of or remind, you know, like this player, that player. That I think that's a good way to do it, but you're right, it's terrible. Like I know you're a Jay Ajayi fan, and so am I. At least I'm pretty sure you are. Yeah. Okay. Good. I didn't want to, I didn't want to misquote you, but I was pretty sure I was right about that. But yeah, I mean, I love the guy, and I had to write him up for Optimum Scout. I know we're talking about receivers, but I had to write him up for Optimum Scouting in our scouting guide or whatever. And I put his comp as Marshawn Lynch, and I'm like, I feel stupid for saying that because Lynch is obviously incredible, but that's who he reminds me of. And I'm not saying he's gonna, it's the whole comp thing. I don't mean to rant, but yeah, the whole comp thing is the worst.
It is, but we probably shouldn't talk about running backs because I'm sure I'm going to talk about it in the next couple weeks. But Ajayi's, I don't even know how to say his name, but Ajayi's broken tackles are probably going to be the highest rate I've watched anybody. I only have 3 games on him, and he has 38 broken tackles on 96 touches. And the other guys, like Abdullah has 37, but he has on 160. Duke Johnson has 35 on 145. And Melvin Gordon has 42 on 162. Mm-hmm. And Gurley was like the best, and he has 46 on 129. So, like, Ajayi just basically needs one more game, and he'll like shatter all those guys. Obviously, all those guys are the better running backs, if not the best running backs. So he's special, man. He can be really, really good if he goes to the right scheme, I think.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
Let's get back to the real position here. So deep threats. We haven't talked about specific guys yet, and we're probably going to get into that here. Let's say it's 2nd and 13. You need to complete a skinny post, and it's cover 0. Who are you trusting to get open downfield and make the catch?
Oh, it's Devin Smith. It's not, and I don't think I guess you could say Cooper. That's fine. But Smith's vertical ability is it's incredible for one, and I mean he's become a really fascinating player to me, and I'm gonna have him. I just did Cooper. Now I'm actually currently writing Dorial Green-Beckham up for the receiver reception perception prospect profiles, and then Devin Smith will be the next one. So I'm excited to dive into that. But his separation ability downfield is really, really good. Obviously he's fast, but he knows how to get positioning, win contested catches downfield. So he's not like we talked about with Coates where they can fly, but they also are kind of have lapses. They don't always get up for the ball and everything. Smith, I think, does everything well. So I would take Smith in this situation.
And if you had to choose, is it Smith and nobody else, or who would be your runner-ups to Smith?
I don't know if I've watched enough of Dorsett to say anything about him.
That's fair.
Yeah, so I don't know if I would take him. I think it would probably be Cooper. He's good downfield as well.
Yeah, Cooper has that little sting route where you fake the corner and run the post. This is so stupid to say, especially after we just got done talking about stupid comparisons. But honestly, when I watch Cooper, just certain traits, like you said, with what Waldman does, shades of his game reminds me of Jordy Nelson. And Jordy Nelson's one of my favorite receivers to watch. I don't know if you've charted him or not, but
that was the first ever, not this season, but last season, the first ever reception perception article was on Jordy Nelson.
And how did that turn out?
Oh, he's a boss. I mean, yeah. He's I think he's top 5 receiver in the NFL.
Oh, no doubt about it. If you told me he was top 2, top 3, I would just carry on the conversation like nothing happened.
Yeah.
I think he's really that good, but just these subtleties in his routes and how he sets up defenders, I think Cooper shows that he can do that, and that's why I think there's a little overcorrection going on with Amari right now. Everybody wants to, just because he's been there for so long, but I don't know. I don't want to get into a tangent about him. We already know he's good, but
yeah.
I would say downfield. It's hard to argue with Devin Smith. All I mean, you just have to watch like all his targets. They're downfield. He's adjusting to the pass. First of all, he's finding the ball. He's locating the ball in the air early enough to adjust to it, which is, I mean, that's a big deal. Like, there's guys that, like Devonte Parker, I think, is a guy that can adjust to bad passes, but he will, find the ball late, and maybe that's why he has to make so many spectacular catches. But Devin Smith locates the fly the ball in the air, and then he'll shield off a man, or obviously he'll just run right by him. So I think Parker or Smith is going to be a guy that I would not be surprised if once he has a refined role in the NFL, he's this 800, 900,000 yard receiver with like 7 touchdowns. Even if it's not on, even if it's not on 80 catches, it can be like 30, 40 catches because he's so good at what he does, and he's going to be faster than the majority of guys he's guarding, even in the NFL. So, I mean, these play-action shots, if the quarterback can get it out there, he's going to make plays, man. So he's going to be interesting to see at the next level. And Dorsett has that same kind of speed, and he's not a bad route runner at all. I was actually a little surprised. On vertical routes, that is. So I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on Dorsett, but he can definitely get downfield and make plays. He has that next level speed too, like Smith. I think he's probably a step faster than Smith. So I would say Smith, Dorsett, and Dorsett's not bad at contested catches either. He showed that he can make contested catches. I'd have to look up the numbers, but I know it's good enough to where I can speak on it. So I would say those two for sure. I can't say Coates because I don't think it'll translate, but I don't know. I think that I would go back shoulder fade to Jalen Strong. I think he can pull that off. So that's what I would go with. Before we get out of here, so we've talked about the position. We've talked about, we've talked about 15 guys probably. So do you think it'd be smart to wait on wide receiver because of the depth? Like, for example, I think it's always important to, classify what you're talking about too. So guys will say, oh, you don't want to draft a receiver in the top 5, but you have to say what you're passing up and what you're going to get in the second round too. So, like, for example, Amari Cooper going to the Raiders is very, very popular right now. Mm-hmm. But would you rather have, let's say, like a pass rusher, Fowler, Gregory, at 5, and in the second round have a Jalen Strong, Nelson Aguilar, or whoever it may be, or would you rather have an Amari Cooper, Kevin White, and come back and have a second-tier pass rusher? So in that sense, do you think it's smart to wait on receiver because of the quote-unquote depth or finding a specific role player for your offense? Or do you think, you just grab your guys, first round, go get your guy?
I tend to think it's first round, you go get your guy. And it's hard, especially in this draft, because, like you said, it's kind of billed as pretty weak at the top, and I agree with that. Like, I don't think players like Amari Cooper or Kevin White would be discussed as top 10 picks in a typical, strong top heavy draft, like maybe last year or whatever. Last year was obviously a little freakish with all the good wide receivers, but nevertheless, like I think in a really strong draft class, I don't know if those guys are ideally top 10 picks. So I'm kind of hesitant on that level to do it, but then at the same time, like, if you know that this guy is good and you know what he does translates to the NFL, like, I have no problem going out and getting those guys in the first round. And, like, I think some people still want to say that wide receiver is not that important. Like, oh, look at how good Seattle is with all their, but that is, I don't buy into that at all. I think it is a position that when you get guys in the right role or you get like a total stud, I think it completely changes your offense. And so I have no problem going in the first round and getting your guy.
Yeah, I think it's all about playmakers in the NFL, man. I don't see how receiver isn't a premium position in the NFL. I know that there's a lot of good receivers in the NFL, so I mean that I think I've heard that argument, but I definitely think it's a premium position, and that it's, I would imagine, like a top 5 position. What, quarterback, edge rusher, tackle, corner, and then that would be it, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it you see the change that it does for a team.
So yeah, I would agree. I agree. I think especially in a weaker draft class like this, like if you think Kevin White fits what you're going to do on offense best, go get Kevin White, and don't wait in the 3rd round for one of these specific Devin Smith types. If you think Kevin White's going to be an all-around every down receiver that can help you on every downs and not just shot plays. So would your answer change if that were last year? Like, would you have waited on? Would you have passed on like for example, Kelvin Benjamin at 27? Would you have passed on him for an offensive lineman? I know it's hard with hindsight, but
Right.
because of the deep draft class, what would you say?
See, I said that last year, especially you talking about Kelvin Benjamin. I'm a Panthers guy, so
Yeah.
that hits home. And that was my point last year was, okay, this is a deep draft. You can totally bypass Benjamin and get an offense. I mean, I wanted them to take Morgan Moses, and now this looks crazy considering what's happened. I mean, so maybe what do I know anyways? But I think that it does change a little bit when in a class like last year's, but that's not going to happen very often. I mean, you're not going to be able to get guys like Cody Latimer in the 2nd round or Martavis Bryant in the 4th round. Like that's not going to happen very often. So in a deep draft, I think you can take advantage of it. And I think this class has good depth, but there's a lot more value in getting studs at the top. Yeah, and looking back, you're right. It is hard in hindsight because Benjamin is one of those receivers, like I mentioned, that just completely changed his team's offense. And I mean, I know there's a lot, especially on draft Twitter and Twitter in general. There's still some people who want to talk down about Benjamin, but I think that you're not really paying attention if you're doing that.
Yeah, I'm a Florida State fan, so.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I know what he can do, and I actually think I know that he kind of gets a bad rap for his yak because the Panthers throw him screens when he's standing still, which I don't know where they got that idea from. But if you just catch him on a slant or a drag, give him room to build up his momentum, and then that's where he's at. I think that's where he can do damage in the yak. But
yeah,
I guess the last question. So would you advise specifically this draft class? I mean, we can even talk about last year's too. But so we've talked about how there's specific depth at the position. Do you think it would be smart to trade up for one of these guys? Like, for example, if let's say the Seahawks and they want to trade up for a Kevin White who is on the board at 15, would it be smart to do that? Like trade up a 1st and a 3rd to go get one of the better receivers, or do you think that's just misunderstanding the value of the draft?
No, I think especially in this draft, considering how many guys, by the time Seattle gets on the board, I mean, I know some guys don't even have, they have maybe 20 first-round grades or whatever, and that's just it seems it's lower this year than normal. I think going up and getting a player like White is really a smart idea, and especially if like you said, Seattle is a perfect example because do they ever need a big guy who can win down the field in any contested situations? I mean, I think about Dorial Green-Beckham there a lot, and just from an on-field perspective, I'm a big fan, obviously, but I would like that idea if they went up and got a guy like Kevin White. I think he would really change their passing attack.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I don't think it's. I mean, I probably use the most, the worst possible example because they're so stacked, and everybody knows that they need a receiver. But even with, I mean, any of the playoff teams, I guess you could call, just because I think I have 13 or 14 first rounders right now, and I'm pretty much done with the big names. So unless there's a sleeper out there, that's probably where it's going to cut off. So I mean, I would because, like I said, it's about playmakers. I know I get this all the time with like my draft articles about how you need to build in the trenches, and I mean, I obviously that's true, but at the same time, you want to get your quarterback playmakers and make life easier on him, and have something for him to rely on too. So, I mean, I would trade up for like a guy like Parker for sure if I was in the 20s, or Cooper, or probably. I mean, it depends what kind of offense for White. I mean, I think he's really good. Like I said, I didn't really mention him much tonight, but I mean, I have him as number three. There's number three receiver comfortably, so he can obviously do a lot of things well. But I think he just has to be in the right offense, and probably where he's going to go earlier on are the teams that best fit him. So.
Yeah, I mean, if Carolina traded up for, like, if for some reason Cooper was falling into those teams and they traded up for him, just on a what they need sort of. I mean, I like White a little bit better than Cooper, but just on like a what they need basis, man, like if they could make that trade, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, scheme fit's definitely all about the receiver, man. I mean,
Yeah.
like you're gonna have guys like Beckham who are gonna fit in whatever it is that you do, but when you can maximize what the player does for, like, if there's a guy you feel like is a timing receiver and you have a third round grade on him and you're sitting there, in the middle of the second and you feel like you can maximize him, especially in this draft, I don't see any problem with, getting a fit as opposed to BPA, because I feel like maximizing a fit will maximize his role, and then, his production will go through the roof. So I guess that's a whole new discussion for best player available versus need versus fit, but I stand on the fit side for sure.
Yeah, totally. It makes a big difference.
Well, man, I really don't think there's much else to talk about. I mean, I'm sure we will link up again and post combine, post pro days, or drafts, whatever it may be. But I do want to thank you for joining me, man. Is there anything else that you want to touch on?
No, yeah, thanks a ton for having me on. And if people are interested in following Reception Perception, there's a hashtag on Twitter. Not a ton of people use it other than myself, but yeah, I put every article or every really relevant thought that I'm having on the series I put there. And the full publication will feature all the rookie work that I've done, which, given the scarcity of all 22 tape for college, like I can't chart everybody, but there, like I've said, Coates, Smith, DGB, Kevin White, and Amari Cooper, those guys will all be in there. And then it's going to feature pretty much every relevant NFL wide receiver. I mean, like almost anyone you could think of is going to get charted. Their numbers are going to be there, and there's going to be some form of analysis on the majority of the guys in there. That will be available for free this year. In June or July. So definitely
Awesome.
Keep tabs. I'm excited to see what comes of it. It's the first year of hopefully many years of putting out the publication.
Awesome, man. And so tell everybody where we can find your work at.
Yeah, you can find most of my work at footballguys.com. We're free during the off season, so all these draft prospect profiles that I'm talking about, you can find all of those there. And my website is thebackyardbanter.com, which is where I'll be hosting the Reception Perception project when it does come out. And also, whenever I see something in my charting that I'm find interesting or whatever, I'll post a little short blog post on there. I'm gonna have one on Crabtree soon, and the other recent one I have is about Sammy Watkins. So you can find stuff like that on thebackyardbanter.com.
And we can follow you on Twitter at
Matt Harmon _BYB.
Awesome, man. Well, yep, thanks for taking the time to do this, and I'm sure I will talk to you tomorrow. So,
no doubt, man. Thanks a lot for having me.
all right, and thanks, guys, for listening. Take care.